The story of Ted Bundy, one of America's most notorious serial killers, is not just a tale of unspeakable violence, but also one of deception, charm, and manipulation. His life story paints the portrait of a man who, by all outward appearances, seemed perfectly ordinary, even charismatic. But beneath this facade lay a dark, twisted mind that terrorized the nation. Ted Bundy was born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont, to Eleanor Louise Cowell, a single mother. His father was never present, and for much of his early life, Ted believed his mother was his sister and his grandparents were his parents. This confusion about his family dynamic might have been one of the first signs of Bundy's troubled psyche. As a child, Bundy was described as bright, shy, and introverted. He had a normal childhood, though his later actions would suggest a deep resentment towards his early upbringing. Throughout his teenage years, he became increasingly withdrawn. Bundy was fascinated with violence and pornography, and he began to display signs of what would later be recognized as antisocial behavior. During his college years, Bundy appeared to be a typical student. He enrolled at the University of Washington and began studying psychology. Here, he honed his ability to manipulate and charm those around him, skills that would later help him lure his victims into dangerous situations. He was also known to volunteer at a crisis hotline, helping people who were experiencing emotional or mental health issues. It was during this period that Bundy became acquainted with several important figures in politics and law, all while hiding his true nature behind a veneer of politeness and charm. The first confirmed murder attributed to Ted Bundy occurred in 1974. His early victims were young women, often brunette and with long hair parted down the middle, a characteristic that seemed to reflect Bundy's personal preferences. He would typically approach them in public places, often pretending to be injured or in need of help. Once they were close enough, he would overpower them, abduct them, and take them to a secluded area. Bundy's victims often showed signs of being sexually assaulted and then brutally murdered, with some of their bodies being found in remote locations. His ability to blend into society and hide in plain sight made him even more terrifying. Bundy was able to carry out his attacks while maintaining the image of a normal, law-abiding citizen. By the mid-1970s, Bundy's killing spree was in full force. Between 1974 and 1978, he is believed to have murdered at least 30 women across several states, including Washington, Utah, Colorado, and Idaho. His method of operation remained largely consistent, though he frequently changed his appearance and location to avoid detection. He would often move from state to state, making it difficult for authorities to link the murders to a single individual. Bundy's modus operandi was particularly chilling. He would often approach women in public places, feigning injury or disability. Once he had gained their trust, he would subdue them, often with the help of an object, and transport them to a more isolated location. He would then sexually assault, strangle, and bludgeon his victims. Some were even subjected to further horrors, including decapitation, with Bundy keeping the heads as souvenirs of his killings. The media began to take notice of the pattern of disappearances, and Bundy's face started to appear in news reports as a suspect, although he was still an elusive figure. He had a remarkable ability to blend into society, despite his increasingly suspicious activities. He even maintained a relationship with a woman named Elizabeth Klopfer, who was completely unaware of the horrors he was committing. In 1975, Ted Bundy was arrested for the kidnapping and attempted murder of a young woman named Carol Durant. While this arrest did not immediately link him to the other killings, it was the beginning of his downfall. During his trial, he was linked to several other disappearances, though the evidence was circumstantial. However, Bundy was able to use his charm and legal knowledge to represent himself in court, a move that only added to his mystique as a charismatic and intelligent criminal mastermind. In 1977, Bundy was transported to Colorado to stand trial for the murder of 2 women. However, Bundy, ever resourceful, managed to escape from the courthouse by jumping from a window. For several weeks, he was on the run, and it was during this time that he committed even more horrific murders. Bundy's escape highlighted just how dangerous he could be when given the opportunity. After a nationwide manhunt, Bundy was finally recaptured in February 1978. By then, the evidence against him was overwhelming. His physical appearance had changed, and he had grown a beard, but he could not escape the mounting evidence of his brutal crimes. Bundy was eventually convicted for the murders of several young women, though it is believed that his actual body count was much higher. Bundy's trial was one of the most widely publicized in American history, and it captivated the public's imagination. The media was fascinated by Bundy's charisma and intelligence, with many still struggling to understand how someone so seemingly normal could commit such monstrous acts. While on death row, Bundy began to confess to his crimes, revealing the details of his killings in chilling interviews. He admitted to many of the murders but continued to downplay the extent of his crimes, offering bizarre justifications for his actions. He spoke about his violent urges as if they were some uncontrollable force, but his words did little to lessen the horror of his crimes. Bundy was executed by electric chair at Florida State Prison on January 24, 1989. His death marked the end of a reign of terror that had lasted over a decade. His legacy remains one of the most terrifying in true crime history, not only because of the brutal nature of his killings, but also because of the way he was able to manipulate and deceive those around him. Ted Bundy's story serves as a chilling reminder of the danger that can lurk behind a mask of charm and civility. His ability to convince those around him that he was just another law-abiding citizen made him a terrifying figure. Even now, decades after his death, Bundy continues to fascinate criminologists, psychologists, and the general public alike. What made Bundy so dangerous was not just his violent tendencies but his ability to appear normal, even likable, to those around him. His charm allowed him to manipulate his victims, the media, and even the authorities, making him one of the most infamous serial killers in history.